Hey guys, welcome back to the Rust Intermediate tutorial, and we're going to be looking at some advanced error handling methods. So I'm kind of building on what we were doing in the last video. You can see we're using this std process command struct again, and I kind of wrapped it into this function that you can pass a string slice in, and that string slice is going to represent the directory that you're trying to run ls for. So you saw in the last video that we just added expect to all of these because I talked about how this was going to be a result. And I've also gone over result in my beginner tutorial. But this is actually a shorthand way to execute a panic. So as we can see here, if we go ahead and run cargo run, we're going to get main rs for when source is put in there. But when lib is put in there, which doesn't exist, we get this thread main panicked. And we see no such file or directory as the error. So that's a shorthand way to throw a panic. And I'm going to show you guys the longhand way to do that. So to do the same thing, let's take expect out and type the match keyword in front. And then we'll say OK. And we'll do a lambda expression that just says, like, if this is okay, continue with the command. If it's an error, then what we want to do is we want to panic and just say error. Oops. And we'll go ahead and just print out the error with that E representation there. So this is the longhand way to do that. And as you can see, it's going to look very, very similar. We're going to get the main RS again for source. And then this time we just get like a slightly cleaner representation. We don't have this like struct object here being printed out. Instead, we just have our message. So pretty cool. But there's more that you can do with like writing your own error handling methods. For example, what if you don't want this thing to panic? And a panic is obviously going to stop your code. It's going to stop your application and abort what it's doing. So what if you don't want it to do that? Like, what if we want this to just kind of like continue with its business if it's not able to find this directory? Well, you can totally do that. All you're going to want to do is turn this like match situation here into an option. So when we have this OK part and we're just saying like, yeah, conduct the command, change that to a sum command. And then we can drop this panic and just type none. And now we can even get crazier and we can go like this. Create these curly braces and we can print line directory not found. And we can return none. So let's see what that looks like then. Boom. You can see that we obviously found main and source. And when we hit lib, it wasn't found, so we just printed this out, but the program gracefully exited. There was no error thrown, like this didn't panic, nothing happened. So that's a very powerful capability. Now, this isn't super necessary, but you can also use the same syntax if you're like setting a variable. So if we just did like let x equal, that's perfectly valid too. And you can use this for when you're trying to declare something as this value or what have you. Obviously, in our case, this particular command doesn't need to be set to a variable, but you can see that we'll get the same exact result. Now, we can also get deeper into the weeds here, and we can match the error type, and we can like do different things based on what kind of error we encounter. So to do that, what we're going to want to do is make sure we use stdio error kind. And then you just simply add another match statement. So if we just like take this out for now and we say match e.kind and then we say error kind, and ours is going to be not found. That's the one we've been seeing a lot. And then we add the curly braces again and we put our same error handling stuff in there. And then just like any good match statement, we need to also have a case for all the other possible errors. So like we don't really know what kind of errors this thing's going to throw besides not found. So we just put this underscore there, and that represents any other error type that could possibly come along. And in that case, we're going to go with our regular panic, and we're going to say an unexpected error has occurred. Cool. And as you know, that's going to run just like we've seen, and it's going to do the same thing that we saw before. Unfortunately, with the way we have this set up though, since we're using current dir, this is always going to throw the not found if this is an invalid directory. There's no way to really trigger this particular use case in this example, but that's what will happen, is any other error kind that comes along will get a panic. Now, we just talked about the longhand way to do stuff, and this right here is your best bet for doing like complex functionality as a result of errors. Maybe directing your program into a different kind of sense of direction, or maybe like this is within a loop, so you'd put like a continue or a break. But let's go back and talk about some of the shorthand stuff. So we'll just drop this all out of here. And I'm not going to have let x equal anymore. And we're back to our original command, and you can see that Rust is already yelling at us because we're not handling this as a result. And you saw, like we did earlier, you can use expect. And we could just do like blah, and that's perfectly okay. And that's, like I said, the shorthand. But what about this other shorthand here? Unwrap. Now, unwrap is going to do the same thing as accept. There's some caveats there, but one of the most important takeaways right now is that unwrap doesn't require any kind of message. It's just going to give you the raw error. So as you can see, if we go ahead and do the same thing we've been doing, you get that same thread main panic message that we've seen before with expect. They both do very, very similar things. Now, there's one more particular shortcut we could use. And that shorthand is going to be the question mark shorthand. Now, right off the bat, when we put the question mark in there, we see this error here. Cannot use the question mark operator in a function that returns nothing. So this is limited to a function that is going to return something, obviously from that error. You can't use it for just like what we're doing here, like printing it out. So I'm going to do like sort of a hacky way to show you how this works. But basically, you want to set your return type to a result. And in our case, we're going to make the result an I32 or an error. And in order to use error like that, you just want to go ahead and import stdio error. So I'm just going to add it up here to our import statement. And now that it's in there, you want to go ahead and return at the bottom of this function OK. And I'm just going to put 1 in there. Now, you can see Rust is warning us here. They're saying like, hey, you have to use this return type. Like you're going to get a 1 back from this. I'm not going to do that because, you know, it would cause me to have to rebuild this whole example. But in a nutshell, remember that you're supposed to use the question mark when you're having return values. And you also have to use result so that there's that conditional kind of going on there. But as you can see, if we run this thing, we're going to get the exact same response for source. But this time for lib, which doesn't exist, again, nothing happens. We just get nothing at all because we have no error handling going on. It's just run this command. If it fails, if there's an error, then we're not going to return an OK. But you can see that nothing happens. It doesn't panic. Everything's graceful. It works fine. So that's a powerful shorthand, but use it wisely because, again, you're going to have to make sure you're doing some kind of return type. This example I have here is a little hacky. And you also aren't going to get a panic and nothing's going to happen. So you've got to be able to like be prepared for that, and you got to be able to handle that. But that's basically it, guys. That is errors in Rust and error handling. And with these tools that we covered in this video, you'll be able to go ahead and build super robust applications that can handle all kinds of errors and execute processes gracefully in the face of all of these different errors.